Transform Chicago into a city of war. It is time of the gang lords. It is the time of Al Capone. Kevin Costner.
There is only one way to deal with such men, and that is hunt them down.
Sean Connery.
You send one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
Robert De Niro.
Somebody messes with me, I'm gonna mess with him.
The Untouchables.
I have sworn to put this man away, and I will do so.
I want him dead. I want his house burnt to the ground.
Monday, 10:10 on BBC1.
Raising his bins off the west coast of Scotland, Bill Oddie is twitching over Chuffs and Doves on BBC2 shortly. As the finale of Science Week here on BBC1, Tomorrow's World comes live from Megalab 97.
It's live from the NEC.
It's the world's biggest laboratory.
It's Megalab 97.
Coming live from the NEC in Birmingham, home of the Tomorrow's World live event.
A couple of months ago, Tomorrow's World, BBC Radio and the Daily Telegraph asked you to send in ideas for experiments. Now, as part of the Year of Engineering Success and as the climax to National Science Week, we're going to be conducting your experiments live. The results should be fascinating and possibly controversial, but to get those results, we're going to need your help.
In a minute, we want you to take part in a psychological experiment which will put our jury system on trial. Now make sure you've got a pen to hand because we'll be asking you to phone in your results to our team of top boffins here who are waiting for your calls.
And we also have a special experiment for our audience here in the Phillips Theatre. I think we've got a few left-handers around somewhere. Yeah, half of our audience is left-handed. The other half, I presume, is right-handed. Hello? The question is there a difference in the way they think?
And thrilled to the sight of cyber mice fighting it out for the title of top robotic rodent. Their challenge secret is under here. More of that later in the programme.
And so on to tonight's first experiment. Now we want to test a theory about the role that psychology plays in our justice system. We'll explain more about what's behind the experiment in a moment, but first of all, we need you to take part. Now make sure you're ready to take down the phone numbers because we'll only give you them once. You're about to see a defendant in the dock who has been charged with burglary. You'll also hear the summing up from a judge, and based on the evidence he will give, we want you to decide whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty. Now, we realize that there would be much more information available in a real court case, but for the purposes of our experiment, all we need to know is your initial gut feeling. Your first impression is the really important thing, so please listen carefully, because you at home and our audience here are the jury.
Mr. John Rogers is accused of carrying out a burglary in which the sum of £310 was stolen from a private home on the 21st of January 1997 at approximately 8 p.m. Rogers claims to have been in a public house at the time of the incident, and this has been supported by his wife and an independent witness. However, the landlord claims to have seen Rogers leaving the pub at 7:30 p.m., which would have allowed enough time to commit the crime. No fingerprints were found at the crime scene. However, the burglar gained entry to the premises by kicking down a front door, and a footprint found on the door matched a set of training shoes belonging to Rogers. But these are a common brand owned by many people.
So it's now time to make up your mind. Based on the judge's summing up, do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty? Phone 0891 980 201 if you think he is probably guilty, or 0891 980-202 if you think he's probably not guilty. Now remember, you don't have to be absolutely sure. Just decide if he is probably guilty or probably not guilty. Calls will cost you a maximum of 10p. Well, now our audience here can vote using their keypads, and for you at home, it's the old telephone. The lines will be open for the next 7 minutes. Guilty or not guilty? Please phone now, and I'll be back soon to tell you more about the experiment.
Now, this year, in addition to the Megalab experiments, we're proud to announce a Megalab challenge. This is a robotic mouse, believe it or not. Robotic mouse racing is one of the fastest growing cult sports, and we've challenged 3 of the world's smartest and fastest mice to race against each other through a maze, which up until now, none of them have seen. But now we can reveal the maze for the very first time. Motor Mouse is the first contestant. Derek Hall is his owner. Would you please set him alight? Okay, Martin Smith, the first contestant, is off. What are the rules?
Well, it's an open international competition organised by the Institution of Electrical Engineers. It's to design a microprocessor-controlled robot, which will go from a start corner to the goal, which is the centre, in the shortest possible time.
Okay, when I first saw this, I thought, why?
Well, first, it's a lot of fun, but it's for teaching students about projects, and we use them for research in artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Great. Okay, Alan Dibley, you are our timer this afternoon. What sort of times are we looking for?
In a maze of this complexity, I'd expect a fast mouse to be doing something of the order of 20 seconds.
And is this a fast mouse, do we think?
Oh, yes, it's going to get close.
Okay, well, Motor Mouse is off, and we have more contestants to come. We'll carry on racing, and we're back with an update just a little bit later. We also have the European champion mouse in action, who actually comes from Britain. Howard.
Great fun. Now, 2 weeks ago, we issued an SOS, Save Our Squirrels. We asked you to send in squirrel sightings to help build up a comprehensive survey of Britain's most endangered species, the red squirrel.
The red squirrel is one of Britain's most beautiful animals, but over the last few decades, it's been fighting for survival. There's a very real risk that within the next 20 years, the red squirrel could be driven to extinction. The main cause of the red squirrel's decline is that they have a rival, the grey squirrel. Introduced from North America, they're bigger than the red, they're greedier than the red, and they've taken over territory once occupied by the red. In order to save the reds, desperate attempts are being made to control the number of greys.
The methods that have been used involve either shooting squirrels or poisoning them selectively. And although this is humane, really we prefer to have a method that doesn't involve killing them.
Professor Moore believes that he's found a way to control grey numbers by developing an oral contraceptive especially for grey squirrels.
And what we're trying to do is really make an animal immune to sperm, either females immune to sperm or even the male immune to its own sperm. And in that way we want to stop fertilization taking place and so make the animal infertile.
Professor Moore now believes that he's found a contraceptive to do just that, leaving the grey squirrel sterile. Crucially, it's so specific that it'll only affect grey squirrel sperm, leaving the reds to breed normally. The idea now is that the contraceptive be mixed with food and left out in areas where there are too many grey squirrels. But introducing a contraceptive into the environment would be an extreme measure. So before doing that, conservationists want to be absolutely sure that the red squirrel really is on the edge of extinction. And that's where your help has been invaluable.
Well, we asked you to send in sightings of reds and greys, and we had over 8,000 sightings, thanks to everyone who took part. And now we can reveal the results in detail. And here with me I have Lynn Collins, who's been overseeing the campaign to save the red squirrel. Welcome, Lynn. Hello. Let's have a look at the result of the survey, a map compiled with the help of the Ordnance Survey. And first of all, I think good news for the north of England and Scotland. Lots of sightings there. What's going on, Lynn?
Yes, we've had a lot of sightings in that area, which is great. And what we've also had is an awful lot of people wanting to help with red squirrel conservation. Scottish Natural Heritage have now actually said that we will be setting up additional red squirrel projects with the people who are offering to help.
Now, you were expecting perhaps more sightings in Wales and not so many there.
Yeah, I'm not so sure what's happened there. It's possible that because of a lot of the red squirrels were maybe in woods, or some of the populations may no longer be there, so we do need to look closer at that.
You look more closely at that. Now, do we need to press the red button to help save the red squirrel and introduce something as controversial as this contraceptive?
Well, just at the moment, that's a bit difficult. I mean, this has only been a 2-week survey, so what we really need is more sightings, and please give us more red squirrel sightings. Give them to your local wildlife trust, particularly in northern England.
Very good. Lynn, thank you very much. There we are. Mixed news for the squirrels.
Well, our phone lines for the Justice Experiment are still open, but for just 1 more minute, so there's still time to vote. In the meantime, we can tell you a bit more about the science behind this experiment.
I remind you, God, that I will faithfully try the defendant and give a true verdict according to the evidence.
Faithfully try the defendant and give a true verdict according to the evidence.
I, Almighty God, that I will faithfully try the defendant and give a true verdict.
For 700 years, the jury system has stood at the heart of British justice. 12 ordinary people plucked at random to sit in judgment and determine the guilt or innocence of one of their peers. Every time a jury sits down on these benches, they're asked to take on enormous responsibilities. They have to make a decision that could have far-reaching implications. A decision that could mean the difference between a life in prison or freedom. The difference between getting justice or not.
The job you have to do is not easy, and the decisions you have to make are never simple. I want you to listen to the evidence very carefully, and only after hearing all the evidence.
This year, Megalab wants to find out just how effective the jury system really is. Helena Kennedy QC has faced hundreds of juries over the last 20 years and is well known for her outspoken views on British justice.
The jury system has been part of the English legal process for centuries, and we decided upon it and settled on it because of the belief that the best people to sit in judgment on their fellow citizens are those who come from their community.
Most countries no longer rely on juries. France, Germany and Japan all use a system where the judges decide the verdict. In these countries, they believe judges are much better than a jury.
You will first hear evidence from the prosecution and then from the defense. Each counsel will put forward a case that is entirely plausible. This means that when you finally come to be asked to make a decision...
But how fair can a jury really be? For many people, it's the first time they've come face to face with the realities of a serious crime. So when a defendant first approaches this dock, can a jury really be expected to listen to the evidence in a totally unbiased way?
I think it's very difficult sometimes to get juries to rise above their initial impression. If we think of some of the cases of miscarriage of justice that we know about, juries will make assumptions, I think, based on the way that they imagine a terrorist looks or the way that they imagine a child molester looks. And I think that those things go so deep that there will be times when they operate and you just can't disentangle them, and the juror themselves may not even know.
Here at the Psychology Department of the University of Hertfordshire, Dr. Richard Wiseman has been investigating what other factors could influence a jury's decision apart from the actual evidence.
Juries are made up of 12 people, and the decisions those people make will be influenced by lots of different factors. Now, psychologists have researched this area, and most of their work is concentrated on looking at the effect that the defendant's appearance has on their decisions. Some studies have shown that, yes, indeed, defendant's appearance does influence a jury's decision. Other studies haven't.
Dr. Wiseman's own research suggests that people do indeed link particular facial features with criminality.
For example, if somebody's got, large eyes, they're baby-faced, they've got a symmetrical face, they're very attractive, we don't see them as a criminal. The criminal stereotype is somebody unattractive, possibly with a broken nose, small eyes, and unsymmetrical face.
But until tonight, no one has been able to test the effects of these stereotypes on a large scale. Well, the experiment you took part in earlier should go some way to giving us an answer.
This Megalab experiment will reach out to a large number of people and a broad cross-section of the public, exactly the sort of people that serve on juries. And for the first time, we should get a clear insight into whether their decisions about guilt or innocence are affected by a defendant's appearance.
Well, the phone lines are now closed, and we can reveal exactly what lies behind our experiment. You were asked to judge this defendant, or rather, defendants. What we didn't tell you was that you will have seen different defendants, who are actually only actors, depending on where you live in the country. For instance, if you live in, say, Scotland, you will have seen defendant number 1. But if you live in, say, London, it would have been defendant number 2. Now, no matter which defendant you saw, you would have heard exactly the same evidence. Now, if you were not influenced by appearance, then the number of guilty verdicts in both cases should be exactly the same, unless Dr. Wiseman's theory is correct. Dr. Wiseman's here. Come on in. Tell us a little bit more about the experiment. Now, what is the difference between these two people?
Well, defendant 1 has a lot of the features we associate with a stereotypical innocent face. He's quite good looking, his baby face, large blue eyes. Defendant 2, on the other hand, has some of the features we associate with a criminal's face, stereotypical criminal's face.
Right.
He's got a broken nose, his eyes are a bit more deep set, and he's a broader guy. Now, if people are being fair, they shouldn't let that influence their judgments, and it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that actually happens.
Indeed, we'll see. Now, if there is a bias, then obviously these could have implications for our jury system. Helena Kennedy, the barrister we've seen in our film, believes that generally the jury system in our country is still the best option we've got. But let's wait till we have the results to see how people have voted. And we've had over 60,000 phone calls. We're analysing the results right now, and before the end of the programme, we'll give them to you. Is justice truly blind to appearance?
An update on the robotic mice. This is Maisie. She's Peter Brindley's mouse. As you can see, she's got an on-mouse camera fitted to her, but it's not really helping her very much. I don't think she's going to beat, in any way, the 27 seconds which has been set by Motor Mouse. But we will persist, and we have another contestant coming up later. Howard.
There's still time. Now, you at home can sit back and relax, because it's time for our audience here at the NEC to take part in their very own experiment. Now, just remind me, where are all the left-handed people? That's right, okay. Now, how many of all of you, left and right, think that you're good at art? Hands up. Good response. Now, I think, looking around, there's a few more on the left. Left-handers think that they're better at art. And that's interesting because there is a theory which says that you left-handers might be more artistic than you right-handers. On the other hand, you right-handers might well be more talented at other things. For instance, you're supposed to be good at languages. So take a look at this.
Just because some people prefer to use this hand, they've faced prejudice and disadvantage. Even the test card girl has faced trouble. Ever since the 60s, she's appeared on your set like this. But she is, in fact, left-handed, and the powers that be thought this would be inappropriate. And this fear of left-handers even stretches as far as our language. Do you know what the Latin word for left is? Sinister. Despite this persecution, many of our true geniuses have been left-handed, including many of our great artists. Leonardo da Vinci, left-handed. Pablo Picasso, also left-handed. And Michelangelo. Well, he could paint with both hands at the same time, but that's another story. But is there really a scientific link between being artistic and being left-handed? Professor John Stein from Oxford University is determined to find out using some nifty technology. So how does this machine work?
Well, this is an amazing machine. It enables us to see actually what your brain is doing when you're moving your limbs.
The key to the mystery seems to be which part of our brains are active when we move our left hand as opposed to our right hand. In this experiment, my head is placed in precisely the correct position, using lasers as a guide.
We want you to move the fingers of your right hand for some time, and it will record what your brain is doing, and then we'll ask you to move the fingers of your left hand, And again, the machine will record what your brain is doing, and that will be it.
A short while later, the pictures of my brain in action are ready to view.
Well, these are two slices through what we call the motor cortex. On this side, we've got the activity of the brain when you were moving your right hand, and you can see the left side of the brain was most active, shown by this white splodge here. But when you were moving your left hand, the right side of the brain was most active. So there's a clear difference. The bottom line is that the left side of the brain looks after the right arm, and the right side looks after the left arm.
All of this has led Professor Stein to come up with a rather interesting theory.
Most people who are right-handed have their speech in the left hemisphere as well as the operation of their right hand. And since they've got both the speech and the operation of the right hand in the same hemisphere, they're much better at communication, both orally and by writing.
Well, that fits me. I talk for England.
That's right.
But what about people who are left-handed?
Well, the left-handers are using the right side of their brain to control their main hand. And there's quite a lot of evidence that the right side of the brain is better visually. So you find that there are many left-handers who are architects or painters or people in the visual arts.
So the theory is that the brains of right-handers have an advantage when it comes to sound, but left-handers have an advantage when it comes to pictures. And to test his theory, Professor Stein has come up with an experiment, and that's where our Megalab audience comes in.
Absolutely. Pay attention, both left-handers and right-handers, because we're going to test who is better visually. In theory, it should be the left-handers. But take a look at this. Hidden in the moving dots is the image of a fish. Now, hopefully, you can all see that. It's in two. Well, that was an easy example. Now, it's time for the real test. I hope you saw that. We're going to make the fish harder to find, and you have to tell us which panel contains the fish. Now, you at home can also play along, but concentrate, audience, because the panels will only be up for a few seconds. Here we go. Find the fish. Is it in panel 1, 2, or 3? Use your controls to vote. Time's almost up. Okay, that is up. Now, it's make your mind up time. Audience, you can vote using your keypad. Very important, this. 1, 2, or 3, the panels, or 4 if you didn't see a fish at all. Vote now. And whilst we're analysing the results, we can show the panels again, and this time we're going to reveal the fish. Now let's see where it is. It's in the top one, in that red box. And I still can't see it. Now, I think we do have the results, and Professor Stein is here with us. Welcome, Professor. Let's see then who did the best. Come and stand in. First of all, the left-handers. How many left-handers spotted the fish, percentage-wise? Let's see how you did. 45%. Now, that is pretty good. But what about the right-handers? If Professor Stein's correct, you should have done worse than the left-handers. Let's have a look at that. The percentage was 46. Well, 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 well. Professor Stein, you must be gutted.
It's a tense moment. On Wednesday, it worked perfectly. Unfortunately, my explanation is that there are many more people who are ambidextrous today, and that's brought down the percentage of left-handers that actually saw it well.
Right, because we included ambidextrous people in with the left-handed people.
But normally speaking, left-handers do better on this sort of test, and that's good news for left-handers, because a lot of people think left-handers are in a bad way. They're alleged to die earlier. It's also alleged that there's more developmental dyslexics amongst left-handers.
So this isn't just a parlour game. There are serious uses for this sort of...
Certainly, certainly. What we aim to do is to show that left-handers do have a better visuospatial sense, better abilities in their visual skills, and that this is something that we can build on for people, for instance, who do suffer from the language problems that sometimes found in left-handers.
Sorry we let you down. Professor Stein, everybody, it looks as though we couldn't prove that the left-handed people are more artistic. Shabazz.
Yes, well, you're not the only one who's having fun. Things are hotting up here. We now have the results of the justice experiment. And to summarize, you were asked to judge these two defendants, guilty or not guilty. You heard exactly the same evidence in both cases. The only difference is their appearance. The question is, did you find this chap here more guilty because he has so-called stereotypical criminal features? Well, the moment of truth is upon us. Let's have a look at the results. Dr. Wiseman is here with me. First, defendant number 1. Now, this is the average defendant, no criminal stereotypes. How many people found number 1 guilty? Let's have a look, and there it is, 29%, okay. But here's the crucial vote for defendant number 2. Remember, he has the so-called stereotypical criminal features. So if we are prejudiced, then we would expect this percentage to be higher. Let's have a look. And it is higher, 40%. Dr. Wiseman, that's exactly what you predicted. Whether we like it or not, we're obviously affected by appearance.
Well, like any experiment, this one wasn't perfect, but for the first time, we've reached out to a large cross-section of the public, over 60,000 people tonight, and we've got a huge effect here, that people, 11% have come to a different decision on the basis of the same evidence, simply because they were presented with a different defendant.
What would happen? What are the implications for the jury system?
Well, I think we should be cautious. You know, in our experiment, we had only a few seconds of evidence. We asked people to make up their minds straight away. Obviously, in a real situation, you have a lot more evidence. You should be a lot more considered. But still, it's worrying. It suggests that people might be biased.
And are there other factors, like more stereotypical factors, like gender, race, age?
Exactly. We looked at facial stereotyping tonight. You could do the same experiment with nationality, with gender, with race, you know, and find out whether those things will affect judgments as well.
But also, is it fair to say that in a real sort of case, because there are quite a few days, a case could go on for a week maybe, that in fact those initial effects would wear off?
That would be the worry about generalizing this to a real situation. But still, you know, there's some suggestive evidence here that something, you know, is biasing people.
Okay, so what do we do with the information that we've got from this experiment tonight?
Well, with these sorts of studies, if we know these biases exist, we can say to juries, be careful, because you might be biased by, for example, the way the defendant looks. Hopefully they can then overcome that bias and give folks a fairer trial.
Be aware of it.
Yep.
Indeed. Fascinating result. Well, clearly, tonight the effect of appearance is much larger than we would like to think. Lessons for us all. Anyway, it's now over to Philippa for the latest news on the Robot Mouse Challenge.
Well, in the last tense moments of this challenge, we have a local hero herring round the maze. Dave Woodfield's mouse is called Enterprise and is from just down the road in Walsall, and also is the European champion. Now, Maisie, unfortunately, didn't make it round the maze at all. But Derek Hall's mouse, Motor Mouse, got a time of 27 seconds, and that's what we're trying to beat here. We're on 18.9 at the moment. Do you think she can do it, Dave?
I think it already has.
You think it's already... Well, have you stopped on 18.9? Was that a winner?
Yeah, that was a winning time.
And I missed it. He won and I missed it. I can't believe it. How long did it take you to build the Enterprise?
It was about 4 months of spare time.
Spare time. Well, you did very well. And congratulations, we have a winner. Any winner deserves a prize. So for your robotic mouse, we have a robotic piece of cheese. Howard and Shanaz, would you do the honours, please?
For the big winner. There goes this one. Oh, he's doing pretty well. Look at that. What about that?
Oh.
It's a dive. Oh, no, stay. Stay there.
Slightly lost control. And that's taken your fancy. The official World Championships will be in July, and so if you want to take part, you can find out how to enter on CFAX and on our web pages. So we'll give you the details of that later in the programme.
Well, that's the end of Megalab 97. Thank you for taking part. You've given us some terrific results, and it now seems the juries can be affected by appearances, at least in our experiment.
And we failed to prove that left-handers are any more visually talented than the right-handers.
Well, we'll be back next Wednesday with another special programme when His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, joins us for the Prince of Wales Awards for Innovation.
All the fun of the fair is here for the whole weekend at the NEC with the Tomorrow's World live event. If you've got time, make sure you come down here and see us. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
much play, the specialist who checks